Hey, one more thing before you go. Is suffering really a natural reaction to pain? We all experience pain on a regular basis, some of us. How can we transcend that suffering and develop a new belief? What are the principles of healing? Does sound play a factor? And I've talked about this before, but we're going to really go in depth today. And is there a path to healing holistically? So many questions, but rest assured, we have all the answers. Stay tuned. We're going to have a conversation with an amazing woman who walked this path, and she's going to share with you all of her secrets so you can do it too. I'm your host, Michael Herst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. My guest in this episode is Kathy Harmon-Luber. She's a certified Reiki and sound healing practitioner. In her healing journey, a healing journey navigator. Let me try that again. A healing journey navigator. Kathy went from suffering to thriving, reversing the progression of asthma, chronic bronchitis, and an autoimmune disorder, and recovered without surgery from several debilitating, inoperable spinal diseases and disc ruptures, which left her bedridden for 5 years. Now she helps others to navigate illness, injury, and loss and learns how not only to cope with, but to become more resilient, joyful, and thriving. Last year, she launched her best-selling book, Suffering to Thriving, Your Toolkit for Navigating Your Healing Journey, which became an Amazon sensation. Kathy specializes in the principles of healing, holistic practices, and the intuitive healing approach. Today, we're going to learn how to infuse the power of sound healing into your daily life and discover the path to resilience and well-being. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Michael. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
What an amazing journey you have been on. I mean, so many things. When I read that, I mean, I thought I've been through a lot of stuff, but I read that and wow, that's all I can
You
say.
have been through a lot of stuff, and I imagine a lot of your listeners have too. Yeah, it's been quite a journey that I've been on for decades. I was diagnosed in my 20s with severe spinal diseases and also autoimmune. So it's been quite a long journey,
What a
but
journey.
it has been the journey from suffering to thriving, I'm happy to say. Yeah,
And you look great now. You sound great. You look
thank
great.
you. Yeah, feeling good.
We know what pain looks like. Not only do we know what it feels like, we know what it looks like. And when we put
Exactly.
that we put that fake smile up and say, yeah, everything's cool, but in reality, underneath it always isn't.
That's
Sometimes
not.
it always isn't. So, but
Yeah,
hey, listen, you had such an amazing journey. I'd like to start at the beginning. Can we?
absolutely.
Where'd you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, called Monaca, and lovely, lovely growing up there for about the first 16 years of my life. Yeah.
I actually know where that is. My father and that part of the family grew up in Allegheny, Pennsylvania,
Oh my
which is
goodness. I
Allegheny
know where that's
County
at.
and right outside Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Not
I know
far, yeah.
exactly where that's at.
Do you have what was your family like?
Great. We lived in this wonderful house. I grew up in this house that bordered the woods, and I was a real nature girl. And my dad was an engineer. He's retired now, but he was an engineer. But he was very, very much into nature himself, and so he would take my sister and I out on our property and into the woods and identify trees and animals. And it was just this lovely, lovely growing up. My mother was terrific. She really supported me in all my creative endeavors. So yeah, it was really lovely growing up there. I have very fond memories.
And you have brothers and sisters,
I have a younger sister
younger
by
sister.
by 3 years. Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. What did you want to be when you grew up? Go to college?
I did. I really wanted to be an artist and musician when I grew up. I did not go to college for that. My dad didn't approve of that, but I've maintained art and music, and now sound healing. photography, all kinds of artistic pursuits, poetry writing, everything. I've kept that close to me in my life, even though I've gone on to do different things. And my undergraduate degree was in marine biology, and when I graduated, there were not a lot of jobs in marine biology. I love the ocean. It's always been a part of my life. So I was thrilled to do that, and then I moved to Washington D.C. and went to work at George Washington University, where I got a graduate degree in publishing, actually. And I've always loved writing, so that's been a big part of my life.
What a diverse opportunity for creativity.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, I mean, you would think, at least from coming from the Pittsburgh or area, with my knowledge of the Pittsburgh area, I don't. That's not too far from the ocean, though, is it? Isn't that
It's
true?
not too far, but when I was 16, my parents, because my dad accepted a new job in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Mm.
we moved to North Carolina. I went
Oh,
to high school there for a couple of years and then off to college. And the beach was only
right
3
there.
hours away, and we
That's where it
spent,
comes in.
time there. And so that's where the real love of the ocean
Comes
really
through.
was born. Yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly.
it's interesting because we all sometimes we walk the path we think we're going to be on, and sometimes that path gets altered just a little bit, and
Mhm.
if we find new purpose. We think we have one purpose, and we find new purpose. We've talked about it on my show, numerous times, and a little bit of my
Yes.
journey. I know some of your journey, but
Yeah.
sometimes when we get to a point where we've had to change our purpose, it it provides an opportunity for you to be able to share your journey to help others.
Yeah,
And where it
definitely.
starts, I know that you've had some, as I said in your intro, you've had asthma, chronic bronchitis, and an autoimmune. Let me try that in English. An autoimmune disease. uh, when did you first show up with some of these things like asthma? I know that that can show up at a very young age.
It did, but it wasn't diagnosed at a very young age. That was the problem. The doctors said it was allergies because it wasn't that severe. It wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles and the air is
Mm.
not so great, right? And so then they defined it as adult onset asthma, but I had it. I could remember sitting in classrooms with tears running down my face because I couldn't breathe. And
Wow.
so it wasn't really diagnosed then. And then some of the other autoimmune diseases were diagnosed when I was living in Washington D.C. Um, and they got progressively worse over the years. So same thing with the spinal conditions. They were present many years. Like when I was in my 20s, orthopedic doctor said to me, "You have the spine of an 80-year-old woman." And I was super active. I was running. I was a dancer. Um, I swam a lot. I just was active in so many things, tennis and many things, volleyball. And he said, "You have the spine of a 20-year-old, you're a 20-year-old with the spine of an 80-year-old, and you probably will be in a wheelchair by the time you're in your mid 30s." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to own that." And so I just began, even at that young age, I realized that I wanted something very different for my life, and I would look for all the answers that I could find. And I've never stopped looking. And probably like you and a lot of your listeners, we continue to keep searching for answers, right? But I've never ended up in a wheelchair. That's the fantastic news. And I did have a disc rupture in 2016. It was the fourth one, and it left me. I have 7 spinal diseases.
Wow.
So as a result of that, I went to some of the best orthopedic surgeons and neurosurgeons in the country, and nobody would operate because my spine is just very complicated.
Is
And
it
so,
hereditary or something genetic?
yes, it's hereditary. It is indeed. Yeah. In fact, my father's uncle was on the police force in Scranton, or a town near Scranton, Pennsylvania, and he walked the beat, and he had to
Mm.
stop doing that in his 50s because his spine degenerated so badly. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
unfortunate.
anyway, it's a hereditary thing, but that spinal rupture in 2016 left me completely bedridden, like for years. And it's only been in the past few years that I've been able to just get back to a normal life. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's still, I have a lot of pain, and there are days that are worse than others. And there are days when I can be almost like a normal person and do things, right? I go for little walks and things, and there are days when I can't. And so um, it's why I call it the healing journey. Like we all call it the healing journey, because you don't just solve something and it goes away, right? It's like it continues to come up, and we need to deal with things. But the great news is, many doctors at that time said, well, it's going to go one of two ways. Your body has an immense capacity to heal. Everybody's body has an immense capacity to heal. I should be really clear about that, not just mine. Um, and you'll either heal or you won't. And we just have to give it time. And it was 5 years, and
Well,
that's really, it's really, it was really crazy. But I sought everything I could, and that's where the book came about. I couldn't do anything. I was flat on my back, and all I could do would put my laptop on my stomach, and I could type a journal instead of writing in a journal, right? So I would look for inspiring quotes on my computer, I'd Google inspiring quotes, things to keep my spirits up, because as anyone with anything chronic can imagine, you have good days and you have very, very dark days where you think, um, maybe it's always going to be like this, and I will never have a normal life again, or anything that even resembles modestly normal. So I just kept looking for inspiration. I contemplated. I wrote a lot, and that's where my book, Suffering to Thriving: Your Toolkit for Navigating Your Healing Journey, came out of. It was from those observations, and just as I realized that our mind is our medicine, and there are other things that are our medicine. In my case, it's art, music, and sound, but our mind, more than anything, is our medicine. And and suffering is a choice. I know that is really hard for some people to hear, and I'm not talking about people who are suffering, in war-torn countries like Ukraine, or people who've suffered injustices. I'm talking about when something happens to us, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be something with our health, our physical or mental health. It could be, people get let go from jobs that they thought they'd be in their entire career. People have accidents. People have divorces. There's loss. We lose people very dear to us, and any of those can be the kind of disruption that brings on suffering in our lives. But suffering at some point becomes a choice. Like I was laying there flat on my back, through the first couple of years of this. And there were days I was suffering miserably in my mind, right? And I finally, got to the point where, with help, I also want to take a little pause here to say, anyone who is going through something really hard, it is not a weakness to ask for help from a therapist, or any kind of counselor. Actually, you do what you need to do to really give yourself the resilience to get through. And it's a strength, actually, to ask for help. So I just wanted to put that out there to any of our listeners who are really going through something where they might need help.
and I,
But
and I interject?
yeah. Oh,
And I think
absolutely.
it's one of the hardest things that individuals that are going through anything, whether it be chronic pain, whether it be an accident, injury,
Yeah.
or anything along that line, even divorce or a loss, the hardest thing to do is ask for help. And
Yes.
I don't know why society and culture, at least within our society and culture,
Hmm.
they have made it almost a taboo thing to have to ask for help or look at it as a
That's
weakness.
right.
And there are other cultures out there that don't have an issue
Right.
by taking care of somebody, or they automatically know they're going to take care of their elders, or they're going to know if they have to take care of somebody, and it's all accepted part of their society and their culture. Unfortunately, within our society and culture here,
Yeah.
it's always looked upon as a weakness. And I can tell you that you as the listeners, I can tell you and the viewers, I can tell you from my own personal experience that I had to overcome that as well. I had to go from a sergeant that had 13 guys, 13 men and women that worked under me, that came to me as their leader. I had to ask for help just to be taken to the toilet. So from my wife, or to wash my hair, or to help me get dressed, and it was extremely humbling, and it was difficult for me to really understand the process of having to just ask. But I can tell you, once you do, and you open your eyes and your heart and your soul, and you look around, you will see that there are people there that you just need to ask
Right.
and put your
I'm
hand
so
out.
happy you said that. Yeah, yeah. It is a really hard thing. I even write about it in the book in terms of asking for help, because that is not something that most of us uh, go around doing. We're competent people. We take care of others. We do our work. We are active in our communities, and to say I need help with the most basic things in our
Yeah,
lives is really hard. And I write about it in the book as taking inventory. Take inventory.
yeah,
Where do you need help? And then match it up with the people in your lives. Who's the best person for this, and how can you spread it around so you're not a burden? Because I think that's the hardest part. We feel like we're being a burden to the people in our lives.
exactly.
I felt like I was being a burden to my husband, and then I was like, I have a lot of friends and community members. Like, how can we reach out? And I had to reach out and say, we do need help. We need help with people bringing us groceries, just basic things, going
Basic
and
thing,
getting our
exactly.
mail at the post office,
Washing
basic
your hair,
stuff, all of that. Yes,
or
exactly.
buttoning a shirt. It's may I ask
Yeah.
this? Were you bedridden? Were you married when you were bedridden?
Yes, and my husband is a saint and an angel, honestly, because yeah, I mean, we've been together for a couple decades now, and so when this happened, it was
It changes your
just it
life.
was really, it changes your entire life, as you
Yeah,
know, and pain changes your life. I mean, the pain scale that doctors use is 1 to 10, and if that is the case, my pain was like a 25, as I'm sure yours was. It's like there is a level of pain where
yeah,
you can't move anything. Like, I would lay in bed the shape of a crescent moon, like
yeah.
head on this side and feet over here, to get the pressure off that part of my spine. And I could not move an inch. And it was crazy. And that went on
It,
for a long time.
yeah, the pain, the level when you have chronic pain from anything in regard to whether what you have, what I have, what others have, where you live with pain on a daily basis. Our pain scale is doubled and tripled from what the normal pain scale is. I would have a little humor. I went in to have some procedures done on my eyes, and the doctor was like, "Okay, I've got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this." And he's going, "Oh, this is going to hurt. And I'm really sorry. And I'm really sorry." And he's doing it, and he goes, "You're not even flinching." I said, "Because that's nothing compared to what I usually go through on a daily basis. What you're doing really is nothing." And I said, not taking away from that. He goes, "Well, can I continue?" It's like, "Do what you got to do," kind of a thing, because we had to talk about it afterwards. And I said, living with pain on a regular daily basis, it changes your level of pain. So when they go from the scale from 1 to 10, ours usually goes from 1 to 20 or 1 to 30. And at our 1 to 10 is really somebody's normal.
That's right. That's
Our,
right.
our
I've
20 to 30 is when we start saying, "I really hurt."
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like, I've tried to explain to my husband and friends, when the pain is at its very worst, the average person would be rushing themselves to the emergency room, right?
Yeah,
Because it's like that much. But in my book, I talk about, like, okay, so there's Western medicine, and Western medicine has saved my life many times, and I just can't say enough about it. It's brilliant in that they can diagnose so well and figure out what we need. But there's all the complementary things, and there's a large range of
Mm.
complementary things we can do to reduce pain, breath work, meditation, visualization, so many things. And I write about these in the book. There's a whole chapter dedicated to pain because so many people I work with are in similar situations. They're dealing with chronic pain, and it can be completely debilitating. As I write in the book, it can change our personalities. Like we become different people. Like people will say, oh, you seem so this or that, or today, like, oh, you seem so mean today, or you seem so irritable, or whatever it is. It's not our personality. It's pain sort of takes over, and it becomes very hard to participate in the world the way you used to before pain. I guess that's the way I would say it.
It's about the that's about the it's a good analogy the way that's placed because it just kind of changes. Well, it changes your life and it changes those around you as well
Yes.
because and sometimes we're lucky and we have individuals like your husband or my wife and
Yeah.
my kids. They have a better understanding from it because they have seen it, watched it, and
Right.
watched you experience that. So, it's grateful. And that's where it comes into to asking and having a better understanding
Yes.
of what's going on and to really take the time to be more empathetic in regard
Yeah.
to the deep portion of that. It's not like stubbing a toe, as I said earlier. It goes a
Right.
little deeper sometimes. What got you? I know you were bedridden for how long? 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
How'd you get out of there? How'd you get out of that bed?
Yeah, that's a great question. A number of things. So, of course, doctors said to me, if you are up and doing things and it's causing pain, you're causing more damage. It's not like when I used to go to the gym and it was no pain, no gain, right? It's not that. So I had to really balance out setting goals for myself. I said, for the longest time, Michael, I couldn't walk, 6, 10 steps to the bathroom without just such horrific pain. It was an extraordinarily difficult experience. And then, it got to the point where that was becoming a little better after many months. And it was like, okay, I want to be able to walk to the bedroom door. And then it took me maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 months to be able to do that. But I kept setting these little goals. So everything is incremental. And then after I was able to do that, it was like, I want to be able to walk to the kitchen and make a cup of coffee or tea. So goal setting is really, really important. And then the part that feeds our soul, like, okay, so before this happened, I was hiking in our mountains. I was walking about 8 to 10 miles, 8 to 10 hours a week. I was swimming 3 hours a week. I was performing classical flute in our town every weekend, at least once on a weekend. I had this, we entertained, we had friends over, we had all kinds of things we were doing, dinner parties, the whole active life thing. I would say I was living the life of my dreams. And when that comes to a crashing halt all at one time, or insidiously, if it's just things are gradually taken away as a disease progresses, it does a number on us, on our heads. And what we need to figure out is, what is our medicine? Okay, so I alluded to this earlier. Our mind is our medicine. For me, nature is medicine. I live in the mountains. Uh, Music and art were my medicine. So I had to begin to look at, I made a list, what I cannot do anymore, and beside it, what I could do instead. So I couldn't ride horses anymore, but I love to draw. So I just really leaned into drawing and sketching horses or whatever. I couldn't play classical flute. It's out at the side, and that would really torque my back. So I started playing Native American flute. I had been playing for many, many years, and I realized I could play it laying down, and without harming my back. And so we have to go from inability to ability, and those things feed our soul. And then realizing that suffering is a choice. I realized very early on that I could become a really bitter, unhappy, angry old lady one day, right? Just because of this terrible thing that was dealt to me. Or I could choose something different instead. I could choose joy. I could choose to thrive. I could choose inquiry. And part of it is asking the right questions. These are all tools in the toolkit of my book, but asking the right questions. When something happens to us, we say, why did this happen to me? This is so unfair. What is going to happen to me? Is it always going to be like this? I mean, the mind just goes in all of these bad directions, the downward spiral. And so we have to ask the right questions like, what if this moment, this illness, this injury is a portal into something better eventually in my life? Like, obviously not in this moment, but like maybe it's a portal to a new path. And that's what it has been for me. And I think probably you might even say that, and others too. You know, it's like it becomes a portal. I believe that our healing journey is embedded in our life's journey, because if we're lucky to live long enough, something's going to happen. You know, we're going to become ill, we're going to get injured, or old age. Your healing journey is embedded in your life's journey, which is embedded in your soul's journey. And that gets us to purpose. And so, you know, I've always been a rather purpose led person like you are. And, you know, I've worked at nonprofit organizations that make the world a better place, and done grant writing to raise money for all kinds of humanitarian issues. I've been a musician and artist and brought beauty to the world. And I thought that was my mission. And then this happened to me. And it's like, a lot of those things I can't do like I used to do, right? So what became very, very clear over these years, and what healed me, I think, is is recognizing my love for sound. And I had been really into sound healing and Reiki healing before that. But when this happened, it was an opportunity for me to really drill down, learn more, experience sound healing daily in my life, and Reiki energy healing daily in my life. And that has become my new path. And so,
It's a brilliant
right,
path.
we have to ask ourselves, and that gets to gratitude. Like, you know, I would lie there in bed and say, I'm really grateful it's not worse. I'm grateful I have my husband and my friends. I'm grateful I live on this beautiful mountain. I go through my gratitude practice. But one day that seed is planted in your head where you say, I'm actually grateful this happened, because I would never have gotten off that other path and found even more happiness and purpose and ability to help others, in service to others in their healing, had this not happened to me.
And
Yeah.
I agree with that. Sometimes, for the
Yeah.
longest time, I went through a lot of anger and denial and resentment for having to
Oh,
go off of
yeah.
my path, because I was going to study to be a lieutenant and then do like my colleagues were doing, going up the line. Most of my friends and the people that I worked with or worked under me went on to be, captains, lieutenants, commanders, assistant chiefs, chiefs, and sheriffs, actually. And it's kind of, I would sit around there thinking, why me? Why didn't I get to do that? Why? What for? Kind of thing. And I did the kind of the same thing that you did. And my daughters actually had to remind me of this, as well as my wife, but my oldest daughter, especially my youngest daughter. I will say that in my particular situation, even when I was in a wheelchair, my daughters didn't bat an eye about me being disabled, but they also didn't let me get away with anything either. So it's kind of one of those things that, they recognize the fact that you, and I have to say this to everybody, and I may have said it before in the past with any conversations that I've had, but you have a choice in life, and you pretty much described the choice. You had to make a choice to say, I'm going to walk to the bathroom by myself. The choice, I want to walk to the bedroom door by myself. I want to walk in and make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea myself. You have to make a choice to do that. And once you make a choice to do that, I think it opens up the doors for things. I value the fact that you utilize creative arts with part of your healing process because I wholeheartedly believe in creative arts and in healing. I'm talking about I'm experienced within this arena in that regard. Part of my master's degree is in interdisciplinary studies with a focus on digital media and performance, and then integrating creative arts with healing. So that's where you use art and drama and music in dance to utilize those methodologies to help you heal and overcome things, whether it be both physical and or mental. Um, it's a brilliant way of expressing yourself or to helping to overcome something or to help you soothe and relax. And sound plays an extremely valuable aspect of that healing purpose because sound, like all of our, and I know that you'll talk more about this, but from my perspective, that I have learned is sound plays an immense part of our healing process in regard to whether or not we can relax or whether or not it takes us out of the painful situation that we're feeling, or if we're having a bad day or a flare day. Because I'm the same way. I have great days and I have bad days still. I still have a disease. So there are days I can go, yeah, I feel this is fantastic. I won't stand up and dance, but you know what I mean? I, I, I feel great. And there are days that I don't want to move. So I utilize the same thing. I utilize meditation and I utilize music and I utilize, um, are you kidding me? Of course, I forget what these are. The We'll have to come back to that one. But I utilize the listening to certain megahertz of sound,
Oh,
binaurals.
yes.
Pardon me, binaurals.
Binaural
I use
beats. Yes.
binaural beats. Couldn't think of that
Mhm.
name a minute ago.
That's okay.
So yes, I use binaural beats to help me
Oh,
to
good.
manage my pain and to help me regulate because my heart rate goes up when my pain goes up, my blood pressure
Oh,
goes up when
yeah.
my pain goes up, things like this. So I utilize binaurals. I utilize the bowls,
Oh,
you know,
good.
for sound and things like this to help me to relax. I utilize qigong music and tai chi music
Yes.
for meditation, and I wholeheartedly believe in it. So I couldn't wait to have this conversation with you because I
Oh,
know that
good.
you're going to help us understand utilizing and what you just described, utilizing some of the Reiki that you learned
Yeah.
and the sound in healing. So how did you get involved in Reiki, for example? What brought you into that arena? Because that's a unique approach to Eastern medicine, basically
It
integrating within
is.
our lives.
It is, but I'll say before I tell you how I got involved in it that right now in the United States and Europe, many hospitals have in their integrative healing departments or divisions Reiki masters like
Oh,
myself
that's very
working
cool.
to help people and sound healers. I mean, quite a lot of hospitals and nursing homes too in the United States and across Europe are doing this with and doctors are finding that it does make a
Yeah.
difference, sound healing especially when it's combined with the Reiki. But I got into it.
Can I just interject one thing with that?
Oh,
It just
sure,
because
of
it popped in my
course.
head. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No
Um,
worries.
it's interesting because when I did research for one of my papers in dealing with sound, there's a story that I had included in part of my research, and it was of the nurses and the doctors within a World War II, World War One, or World War II, vets hospital
Oh.
before they realized what PTSD was. They called it shell shock.
Oh. Yes.
They found out by putting records on or putting music on, it would kind of quell the raging beast when these guys were really having some problems and
Yes.
issues and couldn't deal with
Yes.
other sounds. They would
Yes.
put the music on and they eventually put record players on both ends of the ward and they would play both at the same time to help
Wow.
these guys kind of relax and to go to sleep and finally get some rest.
That's
So,
beautiful.
and at the time they didn't know PTSD, they just knew shell shock.
Right.
these soldiers
Right.
couldn't, do this kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I didn't know that they were integrating that in today's hospitals and music, but it just clicked with me about my research. This research was, well, what number of years ago, 2010, 2011 arena. So, at the time, the hospitals weren't doing that here. So that
Right.
makes me happy.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. And it's so wonderful
Yeah.
to hear that you shared that because I had never heard that before. But I'll tell you some interesting things. Well, first, I got into it because my autoimmune diseases that were diagnosed in my 20s started getting really bad when we moved to this mountaintop, 5,200 feet in the sky. Actually, the first place we moved was 6,200 feet, and it really caused a lot of peripheral neuropathy in my feet and hands. And so, a friend uh, is a Reiki master, and she said, "Why don't you let me give you a Reiki session?" And I was totally open to it. I'd heard of it, just didn't know a lot about it, and I had such an amazing experience. And she walked me through visualizations, and the whole experience felt so good, not just from the standpoint of feeling relaxed and just very deeply relaxed. It was so much more than that, that I kept going back. And at one point she says, "You're very sensitive to the energy. Let me teach you." And so that's when I began my Reiki study. And I'd been going to sound baths up until that point for relaxation. I had these very, very demanding jobs, raising money for nonprofits. They were very stressful. You can imagine high stress of raising money. And I used to go to sound baths for relaxation, just to
That's cool.
unwind.
Very cool.
And then I started noticing other changes. So fast forward, I began studying about 10 years ago. I had gotten some bowls, and I had a lot of other instruments, the Native American flutes I've been playing for probably 30 years now. And other things, kalimbas and frame drum and lots of instruments. And then about 10 years ago, I got really curious about it because, again, I was a marine sciences major. And so I was like, why does this work? Like the sound healing stuff, like what makes it tick? And so I took a class with John Stewart Reed and others, but he is a what is called a sonic scientist, and he works hand in hand with medical doctors. And what he has found is astonishing. Some of this also has been done out of UCLA here in California, and the other place that he's done the research is with Rutgers. So with really very reputable research institutions. And what they have done is they've put in they've looked at blood that has been where the cells are very, very, very damaged, they're inactive because of disease or something, and they would apply a frequency to it in a very scientific chamber that only that frequency is applied to it, and they'd watch the cells. And after 20 minutes of a frequency, the cells that were damaged would begin to come back to life. It would reinvigorate them. So there's a guy out of UCLA, a researcher by the name of James Jimzewski, if memory serves. And what he has discovered recently in the past couple of years is staggering, just amazing to me, and it's going to change the face of modern medicine, I think. And that's what a lot of the medical doctors involved in this are saying. But what they found is sound cells in our body, different cells, like could be blood cells, could be heart cells, could be brain cells. They emit a special frequency. We can't hear it to our ears, obviously, but in a lab where they have very sensitive microphones, they can hear the frequency of sound that those cells emit. And the fascinating part is when they apply that frequency to damaged cells, they are invigorated, much like the blood cells that I was talking about. And so, what they're finding now is certain hertz, which is nothing more than the wavelength of vibration. So hertz at a certain level. will activate brain cells. And so what they're hoping to research next is these it has extraordinary potential, not only for us who want to keep our brains young and healthy, but for people who might have uh, Alzheimer's or brain injuries or other things. So that's where the research is heading. And I will tell you that you asked me like what contributed to my spine getting so much better and stronger. I was doing all of these things. I was doing supplements and rest and physical therapy, which I started 2 years after being bedridden, and continue to this day. All of these different complementary things. And when I integrated into my own sound healing practice a gong, because one of my teachers said the gong is the most healing instrument. It has the lowest of lows and the highest of
Whoa.
highs, and we can't hear them with our human ears, but they're there. So the gong actually invigorates every cell in the body. Like you don't have to just take a tuning fork that is 40 hertz and apply it, to your spine, right? Tuning fork at 40 hertz is supposed to help with pain relief. And I've actually found that to be true. It doesn't
Mm.
make it go away forever, but if you're in a really bad, painful episode and you've tried everything, it takes it down a notch. And I think for anyone who has chronic pain, like taking it down a notch is a hugely beneficial thing.
100%.
Right? But the
100%.
gong has helped me to really improve much more than the rate of improvement I was having before. So
I
that's
might
what
have to
makes me
look into
say,
getting a gong.
I think it's worth looking into, and there are gong baths. Part of the work that I do as a sound healer is I do one-on-one work that's targeted to individual people, and the people who have had issues that the regular sound bath helps, but
Mhm.
probably not as maximally. I always pull in the gong, and they always say, "I was really prepared not to like that gong." But it's played very gently. It's not loud and clashing as we tend to think of it if
Don't
we
play it.
go
Don't
and
play it like a bass drum.
that's right, exactly. So anyway, played gently, it has all of these overtones, and people respond to it really well and say that it's been beneficial to them too. So I love that part of it.
Well, I like what you were saying about them exploring the ideas of music and the mind and Alzheimer's and stuff. My father-in-law
Yes.
had Lewy body dementia,
Oh,
and yeah, we were with him the last 18 months of his life and took care of him. And
wow.
I will tell you, in also exploring the creativity of the use of music and sound, from a music perspective, there has been studies that have shown, and it worked with David, is that anybody that's taking care of anybody with any kind of an Alzheimer or type or dementia, especially in regard to that, these individuals as they progress in the disease sometimes don't have a filter for anger, for example, or frustration,
Yeah,
and they get anger and frustration like we do too. They just don't understand it, and they don't
right.
understand what's happening to them, which creates more anger and frustration. But music would always kind of quell that. It would kind of soothe that. And
Yeah.
certain songs and certain music, even though he had forgotten his own daughter's name, the song he would remember,
Wow, that's amazing.
kind of a thing. So, yeah,
Ooh,
doing more talking to the hospice people, talking to the nurses, and talking to
yeah,
other individuals that they were going, yeah, we found that you'll find dementia and Alzheimer patients that are in facilities at the moment. Someone will come visit them and music will come on and they'll recognize the music or they'll go over and want to dance because they recognize that
wow,
music
that's
or something, which
beautiful.
is really cool from my perspective. But it
That's
resonates with what you were
so
saying.
cool. It
It
does,
it
and
just touches the cell and touches the soul.
yes,
Well, and music is a universal language,
it is, it really
you
is,
know.
and, John Stewart Reed also says And I have a number of things that I've developed that our listeners can and viewers can do at home to integrate sound into your life. So I want to touch on that. But one of the things is actually 20 minutes of listening to music that you love is healing. They've shown this. In other words, this is not just me saying this. This has been proven with these sonic scientists and who work hand in hand with medical doctors and other researchers. 20 minutes of music you love. And we always think, oh, classical music, it's so soothing, right? It doesn't have to be. That was the big surprise. Anything that is music you love, that isn't played too loud, music with a beat, like good old rock and roll, um, can be very, very beneficial to an individual if you happen to love that music. And so that's sort of the first prescription. When I'm working with my clients, it's like, here are some things you can integrate. The first thing is, if you can get a sound bath, definitely do. Zoom quality is so excellent right now. They have a professional sound thing that I use that it really comes through, and you hear all the frequencies, and it really can be healing. So go to a in-person sound bath or an online sound bath
Can
or
I ask a question,
one-on-one.
please, to help people understand
Yes,
what
of
exactly is a
course.
sound bath? I mean, you mentioned it a
Good
couple times,
question.
but
Yeah.
what exactly is a sound bath?
Good question. It's an immersion in sound. Simple as that. It's an immersion of sound. And many people use the crystal bowls that you alluded to, and I do too, or Tibetan bowls, but Native American flutes, frame drum, kalimbas, um, the gong, any kind of instrument. Oh, tuning forks, of course, all of those put together. And when I build a sound bath for an individual, it's based on what they're going through. Like if somebody is dealing with uh, um, chronic pain, it's a certain set of frequencies plus the gong. um, I use singing as part of this too. Singing healing tunes from around the world, actually. And so it can be this menu of things that we pick and choose the right frequencies for a particular issue. I'm going to be developing in fact, I'm in the process of developing now a heart chakra healing program that is like a course, a module, in collaboration with Dr. Charlize Davis, who is a doctor of integrative medicine and functional medicine. And so we're developing that. So you can target like to the heart chakra or to the brain or to other things. But what people can do at home, this is really fascinating. And I just tell everybody I meet this basically, which is um, the humble hum, as discovered by Jonathan Goldman, probably 30 or 40 years ago. He wrote a book about this. The vagus nerve travels from this area, and it's called a wandering nerve because it wanders through our body, and it helps to control things like blood pressure and heartbeat and breathing, all the things that we don't think about, right? But if the vagal nerve is not toned, it is it is out of balance. And that's when some of these things can either happen or it can be a byproduct of. And so humming activates the vagus nerve. So I tell everybody, sing, hum, listen to music you love. There's another thing, tapping percussively on your body. Like I play frame drum, but you can just tap on your body a beat, and it's our mother's heartbeat that we hear in the womb is healing to us, right? And so we don't hear that again usually after birth. We can sometimes hear our own heartbeat, but the drum resembles the human heartbeat. And so it can help bring us into a different brain state that is more relaxing, and where healing happens. When we're stressed, when we're amped up, when we're plugged into our devices, the stress hormones, the cortisol, and all of that, uh, that's not healthy for us, and we all know that now. Like stress is not good for us. How can we bring that down? those simple ways that I just mentioned, the singing, the humming, the music, listening to music you love, and the percussive tapping. You can tap on a table or a book or a drum, or on your hand or wrist. Uh, all of it, if sustained, can be healing. And the thing is, we don't just do it one time. Like, we can't go to the gym one time and have toned muscles, right? Well, it works the same way. Um, we need at least 4 to 5 minutes for our bodies to come into entrainment, which is just a fancy word for our bodies becoming balanced with the frequency that we're healing or feeling. The cells are feeling. So it's our body becomes entrained to that sound, and so we need at least 4 to 5 minutes. But they've discovered that 20 minutes is actually optimal. And so if you build that into your daily practice, it does begin to change your life. And as I was able to become, up and out of bed more often, I started doing these things. I'd start playing the bowls. I would start playing my drum. I'd play my Native American flutes. And I do believe it all contributed to the healing, because it puts us in this space where we're receptive to healing, where we're relaxed. And on especially stressful days, I even just build in 4 or 5 minutes, like on the hour, to do some breathing and a little bit of sound healing, maybe with tuning forks or one of the smaller bowls. So these things are very easy to integrate into our lives. And over time, they make a huge difference. Huge. Yeah.
One of my favorite songs, you're talking about that with a heartbeat. One of my favorite songs, and my go-to songs, I'll say, is Adele, "Rolling in the Deep."
I love that
And
song.
it's the heartbeat, right?
It is the heartbeat.
It's
You
the
got it.
heartbeat. I mean, you can
That's
turn that
music you
up and you
love.
can, yeah, it's kinda like you
Yep.
feel that and you kinda feel it deep down inside. It's like,
You
yes.
do.
And then as for the
Absolutely.
singing thing, remember, Will Ferrell in Elf? He
Yes,
said, "Singing. Singing is nothing more than singing, I'm singing, I'm singing. It's nothing more than talking with a little
that's
singing,"
right.
kind of
That's
a thing.
right.
And the
And
best
it
way to
doesn't
spend Christmas cheer is what I can't remember the exact quote. The best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing or
possibly. I can't
watch Elf.
remember. Can't remember. I've got to rewatch that.
Yeah, I
But
gotta
but
watch Elf.
it's true. And people get so hung up about their voices, like, am I singing it right? Am I singing in tune? Am I pitchy? All this stuff.
And
Our
singing is
bodies
nothing more
don't
than talking.
care.
Yeah,
That's
singing is
right.
nothing more than talking, just in
That's right.
a tone.
That's right. It's exactly right. And
Yeah,
and our bodies don't recognize it as that. Our
it does.
bodies intuitively sing. And one of the things that I love to do, I do this on the head of my frame drum, which is very resonant, but I just love to just sing sounds, or it could just
Yeah.
be a vowel, like the ancient cultures of, like, India, the bija mantras, simple seed vowels that we can chant or sing. um,
Oh,
they really
meditation, you
they
do,
are a little healing. That's right. That's one of them. That's one of the seed mantras, actually. So people have to get out of their heads that I have to sing well, I have to sing precisely. It's not that. Our bodies do not care. We could be singing anything. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't have to sing words. You could sing to your garden. I love to sing to the trees. Like, I live in a forest, and I just walk around the yard now. I go for walks, little walks, and I just sing or hum. And I don't do it particularly well, but it feels good. It feels really good to do. And that's
It
the important
I can
part.
almost guarantee the trees are loving it, so, yeah,
I think so.
because 'cause we're all one with the universe, we're all one with the trees and the bushes and the birds and the bees and everything else, so, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and,
it's an
it's
offering. It's an
exactly,
offering that we
exactly.
give. And another of my teachers has said that when we sing outside, I never knew this until he said this, but when we sing outside, song or any tone is not a wave, it's a bubble.
Oh, I didn't know
It's a
that.
sound bubble. It goes out in a bubble. It doesn't come out of our mouth in a little wave, right? It comes out in this bubble. And they have the research to show this, and it's
That's
beautiful.
crazy. That's
But
pretty
these
cool.
sound bubbles can, unimpeded, if you're outside, they go up into the universe. They go up into the stars. I mean, we get messages back from stars and planets that the telescopes pick up those sounds,
Exactly.
right? Our little sounds, they might be really little, but they're up there going up
They're
into the
still
universe. So
there.
I always think of it as an offering, right?
Well,
It's an offering to the world.
I agree with that. It's
Yeah,
like the little cliche, dance like no one's looking. You can
that's
sing
right.
like no one's listening, but you can
That's
sing and
right.
enjoy it, and somebody's going to listen or something will listen
Yeah, or hum,
or hum.
hum to the trees, hum to the garden. I hum while I'm in the garden, and it feels good, and I like to believe the plants enjoy it
I would say yes. I wholeheartedly believe in the fact I talk to my trees and my plants, and they actually grow
too.
pretty
Yep.
well. And I think that they,
Yeah.
when they're struggling, I go out and talk to them. And my neighbors probably think, it's the crazy old guy in the backyard again. But
Yeah, don't worry about the neighbors. But there
don't
was
worry
that
about that.
wonderful book that was written by Emoto, Masuro Emoto, I think his first name is Masuro, and he wrote this book about the snowflakes and water, and teachers have done this experiment in classrooms with kids talking to plants. You speak negative words to a glass of water, hate-filled words to a glass of water, and to this one over here you speak love and kindness, and then they look at the molecules under the microscope, and that could be for snowflakes as well. Same thing happens with plants.
Whoa.
One will die, one will live. And there are lots of experiments about this, but his books are beautifully written and very accessible, that demonstrate that words do make a difference.
They do.
Words of kindness, and that also is something that's part of the healing journey. It's like, we want to say, we want to curse at our body parts that aren't working and say, darn you, and it just be that's disempowering.
I'm a
We have to
gentleman, so
think
I won't say what I
empowering.
really said.
I know. Well, I was going to be a lady and not say what I might say, but it's like those are disempowering things. And if we speak love to our bodies, like one of the things when I said I would set goals and then I'd achieve it, I'd walk 20 steps, and now I'm up to thousands. But like when I was walking, just able to walk 20 steps, I was like, yay, me, go, sweetie, you really did it. Thank you, body. Just whatever you have to say. And it sounds totally goofy, and I'm saying it out there to everyone, but it does make a
It
difference. It
works.
does make a difference. It's words of healing, and all you have to do is see those side by side images of what hate-filled, angry words do and what loving, kind words do, and you never speak unkindly to your body again.
It's interesting because, that analogy within itself has a lot of meaning to it because if we do speak negatively about ourselves, then we start believing it.
That's true.
And I think that a lot of challenges that many people have in regard to that, it drives them down a negative path and a dark path.
Yeah.
Dealing a lot with people taking that dark path, and a
Right.
lot of it was negative talk within themselves, and and of those around us. My oldest daughter, and
Yes.
as you probably heard through the podcast, she came to me when I was feeling sorry for myself, sitting in a wheelchair. n-
Yeah.
When I asked her what she wanted for her wedding present, she said, "I want you to walk me down the aisle." And that motivated me. Those words are what
That's
lit the
right.
fire under me to get out of the wheelchair and to move forward and
That's
not look
right.
back. So and then the my wife and my other daughter and those my colleagues are their words also helped me to move forward and continue my journey of healing within
Yeah.
myself. So words mean a lot. They
They
really,
mean
really
a
do.
lot. For me
Speaking of
too.
words,
Yep.
let's talk about how I pressed the wrong button again. Let me go back and do this again.
That's okay.
Let me mark this. Speaking of words, let's find out how somebody can get in touch with you to find out your book and to find out your services and how you can help them.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through my website, which is sufferingtothriving.com, which you have here. And there, people can listen to podcasts like this and read some articles that I've written for magazines. They can find out how to work with me. They can connect to my social media. It's all right there at the website. That's the easiest way to find me and the book.
And I'll make sure that the link to your website will be in the show notes so that everybody has easy access to be able to just click
Thank
that link
you.
and follow you through. But I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for sharing your journey and your experience and your wisdom. And thank you for taking the choice or making the choice to get up out of that bed, because if you wouldn't have done that, you may not be here having a conversation with me, sharing the tools and the positivity that others have the opportunity to walk the same path. So
Yeah,
thank you.
it's been an honor to be here with you, Michael. I just love our conversation, and I hope it inspires people, and your story certainly does.
Your story has inspired me because of what you have gone through as well. We all walk a similar path. We all have been
Yeah,
through and can say we've experienced some of the same things, and each one of us
yeah,
have a unique path ourselves. And your journey and my journey are similar in certain ways, but you have overcome so much more that it's been an honor having you on the show as well.
no,
And
thank
I
you so
appreciate that. I'm
much.
grateful.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
this is one more thing before you go. So before we go, do you have any words of wisdom we can share?
Oh, yes. I would say the most important thing is to never lose hope and to never give up trying to find your purpose in life. I would say that at this just really incredibly challenging time on Earth, not to mention each of our lives, but on the entire planet. And I know that each one of us is here for a reason with a gift to bring forward to the world. Let your healing journey or whatever the disruption is in your life, let that open a door to finding your gift that you can share with the world and never lose hope. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Those amazing words of wisdom. Thank you very much for sharing those as well.
Thank you.
Kathy, I appreciate you. As I said earlier, thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope we have another conversation down the road. I think you've got much more to share, and I would love to do that. Everybody,
Love to.
please follow the link that I'll put in the show notes to get to her website in order to get this amazing book and the tools necessary for you to walk this same journey. And one more thing before you all go, have a great day, have a great week, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.